I never thought a snowblower could turn into a legal weapon, but that's exactly what happened. That morning started like any other winter morning. Dark outside. Dead silent. Snow piled so high it swallowed my driveway. I'd already been late to work twice that week, and if I didn't clear the snow early, I wasn't going anywhere. So at exactly 6:02 a.m., I fired up my snowblower. I didn't even get halfway down the driveway. A flashlight beam cut through the snowfall, and there she was, Deborah, the HOA board president, arms crossed, standing in ankle-deep snow like she'd been waiting for me. She didn't say good morning. She shouted, "Turn that thing off right now. You're violating quiet hours." I laughed at first. Thought she was joking. She wasn't. She pulled out her phone and read from an HOA notice, something about mechanical noise restrictions before 8 a.m. Then she told me I'd be fined $250 per occurrence if I didn't shut it down immediately. I stood there, freezing, staring at a woman who didn't have to leave her house until noon telling me I wasn't allowed to clear my own driveway. I shut the snowblower off. Not because she won, but because I was tired. And cold. And done arguing. I grabbed a shovel and spent the next 2 hours breaking my back while HOA board members drove past in their SUVs, on a road that crossed my land. That part mattered. Because what they never remembered, what they conveniently forgot, was that the road leading into their gated community wasn't theirs. It was an easement. On my property. I didn't think about revenge that morning. But I did that night. I pulled out the folder I'd kept since buying the house. Old documents. Survey maps. Legal descriptions. And right there in black and white was the truth. The HOA had permission to use the road. Not ownership. Permission. And permission can be revoked. The next day, I called a lawyer. He didn't laugh. Didn't hesitate. He just said, "Yes. You absolutely can revoke it." So I did. I sent formal notice. Filed the paperwork. Followed every rule. Gave them the legally required window to respond. They didn't take it seriously. At first. 3 days later, I installed a simple steel gate at the edge of my property. Nothing dramatic. No chains. No signs. Just a locked gate. The panic started immediately. People couldn't get to work. Delivery trucks turned around. School buses stopped coming. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Deborah left 6 voicemails. Her tone changed fast. First she yelled. Then she demanded. Then she begged. She showed up again that afternoon, this time without the clipboard. Without the confidence. She asked me to open the gate, just temporarily. I asked her one question. What time does quiet hours end? She didn't answer. I reminded her how standing in the snow at 6 a.m. felt. How being told my livelihood mattered less than HOA comfort felt. How rules were only enforced when they benefited certain people. She tried to apologize. But it was too late for that. The HOA held an emergency meeting that night. They suspended the noise rule by morning. Removed the fines. Issued a formal written apology. Only then did I unlock the gate. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just went back inside and made coffee. The next snowfall, I ran my snowblower at 6 a.m. again. No flashlight. No shouting. No HOA president in the snow. Just the sound of a machine doing exactly what it was meant to do. And that road. They still use it. But now they remember whose land it is. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No traffic. No engines. No tires crunching over snow. That road, their lifeline, was empty. I made coffee and stood by the window longer than I want to admit, watching the snow fall like nothing in the world was wrong. But I knew it was wrong. Very wrong. And any minute now, they were going to realize it. At 7:11 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Unknown number. Then another. And another. I ignored them. By 8, the messages changed tone. Hey, we can't get out. Is there some mistake with the gate? Can you please open it just for today? I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. calm in a way you only get after being pushed too far and finally stepping back. Around 9, I heard shouting outside. I pulled on my coat and stepped onto the porch. A small crowd had gathered by the gate, parents in work clothes, a delivery driver sitting in his truck, 2 HOA board members arguing with each other like this was somehow my fault. Deborah stood front and center. She looked different. No clipboard. No practiced smile. Just panic, poorly hidden behind forced authority. She saw me and immediately started talking, fast and loud, like if she said enough words, she could rewind the last week. This is unacceptable. You can't just trap people in their homes. We'll call the police. We'll sue. I didn't raise my voice. I just asked, for what? She stopped. I told her the truth. That everything had been done legally. That the easement was a privilege, not a right. And that the privilege had been revoked. Someone in the crowd muttered, "He's right." That stung her more than anything I could have said. The police did show up, 2 officers, polite, tired, cold. They looked at the paperwork. They looked at the gate. Then they looked at Deborah. One of them shrugged and said, "This is a civil matter." I've never seen a woman deflate so fast. By noon, the HOA lawyer called me directly. He didn't threaten. Didn't posture. He asked what it would take to fix this. I told him exactly what I wanted. The noise restriction rule, gone. All fines, voided. A written apology, sent to every homeowner. And a clause added acknowledging my property rights, permanently. There was a long pause. Then he said, "I'll draft it." The gate stayed closed that entire day. Not out of spite. Out of balance. That evening, the snow started again. Thick. Heavy. Relentless. I watched from my window as people stared at the gate, realizing something important had changed. Not the road. The power. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was scared, but because I kept replaying the last few days in my head. The gate. The crowd. Deborah's face when she realized rules don't mean much when you forget who you're dealing with. By morning, the emails came in. One by one. The HOA's emergency update. The suspended noise rule. The apology, written in stiff, careful language, but still an apology. Then something unexpected happened. Neighbors started reaching out to me directly. Not angry messages. Not threats. Thank yous. One guy wrote that he'd been fined 3 times for warming up his truck in winter. Another said she'd been warned for using a leaf blower on a weekend because someone didn't like the sound. They weren't mad at me. They were relieved. That afternoon, Deborah showed up alone. No audience this time. She stood at the edge of the property like someone approaching a line they finally understood. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said quietly. I believed her. That's the thing about people with authority. They don't expect consequences. Not real ones. Not ones that touch their own lives. I told her I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I just wanted fairness. The kind that works both ways. She nodded. Not in agreement. In acceptance. By evening, I unlocked the gate. I watched the first car roll through slowly, almost respectfully. Like people weren't sure if they were allowed to use the road anymore. Life went back to normal. But not really. The next snowfall came a week later. At 6 a.m., I started the Snowblower. I waited for the knock. It never came. Instead, I noticed something small, but important. Other people started clearing their driveways early too. Nobody complained. Nobody called anyone out. Because now they understood something the HOA had forgotten. Rules are meant to serve people, not control them. And power only works when everyone agrees to ignore where it actually comes from. Sometimes, all it takes is a locked gate to remind people where the lines really are. Winter didn't leave right away. That year, it lingered longer than usual, like it wanted to make sure the lesson stuck. Snow kept coming in heavy waves, overnight dumps that erased roads, buried mailboxes, and forced everyone outside whether they liked it or not. And every time I stepped out at dawn and started the Snowblower, I half expected someone to appear again. A knock. A complaint. A reminder of how things used to be. But it never happened. Instead, something quieter took its place. Understanding. At first, people still moved cautiously around me. When neighbors passed by on the road, they waved differently. Slower. Almost respectful. Like they weren't waving at the guy who locked the gate, but at someone they finally saw clearly. I didn't enjoy that part. Power isn't comfortable when you never wanted it in the first place. A week after the gate incident, I ran into an older man named Carl at the edge of the road. He'd lived there longer than anyone, before the HOA, before the gates, before the rules stacked up like bricks. He watched me clear snow for a minute, then said, "You did what nobody else had the nerve to do." I shrugged and told him I just wanted to get to work. He shook his head. "No. You reminded them this place wasn't built on paperwork alone." That stayed with me, because for a long time, I'd wondered if I'd gone too far. If locking that gate, even legally, crossed a line. But seeing how people breathed easier afterward made something clear. The problem was never the Snowblower. It was control. The HOA board had slowly trained people to accept inconvenience as obedience. Don't make noise. Don't question fines. Don't push back. Most people complied because fighting felt exhausting. I knew that feeling well. I'd felt it at 6 a.m., freezing, shovel in hand, watching SUVs glide past me on land I technically owned, but didn't feel allowed to defend. That changes a person. And once it changes you, it doesn't change back. Deborah's last meeting. About a month later, I got an email invite. HOA Town Hall meeting, special session. I almost didn't go. But curiosity has a way of pulling you into rooms you've already left emotionally. The room was packed. More people than I'd ever seen show up for anything HOA-related. No coffee. No pastries. Just tension and winter coats. Deborah stood at the front. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just less armored. She cleared her throat and read from prepared notes. She spoke about community harmony. About mistakes. About overreach. Then she did something I didn't expect. She acknowledged me directly. Not by name, but by action. She said, "We forgot that authority comes from trust, not enforcement." And when we forgot that, someone reminded us. No applause. But no anger either. Afterward, she stepped down. Not dramatically. Not in disgrace. Just quietly. The board voted in new leadership within weeks. People who actually lived with the consequences of their decisions. I never joined the HOA. Never wanted a seat. I didn't need one. The gate stays. People asked me if I'd remove the gate permanently. I didn't. Not because I wanted leverage, but because boundaries only work if they remain visible. The gate stayed unlocked, open every day. But everyone knew it could close again. And funny enough, it never needed to. People respected the road. Delivery drivers slowed down. Snowplows coordinated with me directly. And no one ever complained about early morning noise again. Not once. The Snowblower became just another sound of winter. Like wind. Like life moving forward. What power actually feels like. Here's something nobody tells you about standing your ground. It doesn't feel victorious. It feels heavy. Because once you realize you can push back, you start seeing all the moments you didn't. All the times you swallowed frustration because it felt easier than confrontation. I thought about that a lot that winter. About how many people live quietly boxed in by rules that only exist because no one ever questions them. About how often comfort is mistaken for peace. And how quickly peace disappears when fairness does. I didn't win against the HOA. That's not the right word. I corrected an imbalance. And once it tipped back into place, everything settled naturally. Like snow after a storm. The last snowfall. The final snowfall of the season came late. April, of all months. It started softly, almost apologetically. The kind of snow that melts as it lands, unsure if it belongs. I woke up early out of habit. At 6 a.m., I stood in the driveway, hand resting on the Snowblower handle, listening. Nothing. No complaints. No tension. Just quiet. I turned the key. The engine roared to life, not aggressively, not rebelliously, but confidently, like it had always belonged there. As I cleared the driveway, a few neighbors came out too. One waved. Another gave a nod. We didn't talk. We didn't need to, because we all understood something now. The lesson nobody wrote down. Rules matter, but respect matters more. And the moment rules stop serving people, they stop being rules and start being weapons. That HOA never banned early snowblowing again. They didn't need to, because the lesson wasn't written into bylaws. It was written into memory, into a locked gate, into a quiet road, into a winter where people learned that fairness doesn't ask permission. Sometimes, it takes a little noise at 6 a.m. to wake everyone up.